What began as something of a traffic stop turned into a scuffle and then gunfire 10 years ago. Police say that Howard Morgan, a former Chicago cop, was immediately belligerent, went for his gun and fired first. What followed was an exchange of dozens of shots fired. Morgan claimed that the police were the provocateurs shooting without reason. But a jury convicted Morgan. Now the former governor has ordered him freed.
I'm just thankful to all that have dealt with these trials and tribulations these almost 10 years now.
Morgan's freedom has his family and supporters rejoicing.
Hi, my name is Chandler Tucker, and we are here with former police officer Howard Morgan, who on February 21st, 2005 experienced an American tragedy. Please tell us what happened.
Well, on the night was the morning of February 21st, 2005. I was stopped, presumably by 4 Chicago police officers on my way home, and I was only half a block from my house when I pulled over after I saw the emergency lights come on behind me to let them pass by. And when they stopped their vehicle across from mine, they got out of their vehicles with guns pointing at my direction. I identified myself as a police officer to them. And at that time, they snatched me out the van, out of my vehicle, started beating me, burst my eardrum, and shot me 28 times. And shot me 28 times. And shot me 28 times. 21 of those times in the back, even while holding me down to the ground, they were shooting me. 21 of those times in the back, even while holding me down to the ground, they were shooting me. First of all, they took me to the hospital and checked me in as John Doe after taking my police identification. After checking me into the hospital as John Doe, with them having my police identification in their possession, they proceeded to try to attack me during the time period I was in the hospital. Attack me during the time period I was in the hospital.
What went through your mind as this was happening?
Well, what went through my mind as this was happening was bizarre, because it shouldn't have been happening. That's what really threw me off after being a police officer for 21 years and then being attacked by 4 Caucasian police officers for no reason at all. And I'm only a half a block away from my home, which I was going to, and it was just, it wasn't realistic. That's why they didn't expose me as a police officer, because they knew in their minds they had messed up. We're going to hold ID. We're not going to contact his department. We're going to just, and it's John Doe. He's unacceptable. It's a shame that it takes film to show this now, after all the deaths of all the young black people and various Spanish individuals, but it never happens to Caucasians.
So going back to the night that this happened, did you think that you would make it?
That wasn't even a thought, because I was unconscious at that time after being shot 28 times. So that particular night, there was no thought. Thoughts only came after the fact. But I never gave up on making it when I did come back to my consciousness, which was days later, I assume, because I don't remember anything. The surgeries, when I woke up, all I knew is that I didn't know where I was, and I couldn't move because of the physical damage that had been done to me by the bullets, which was a surprise to everybody that I was even alive.
So after you were charged, what happened?
Well, I was charged. I was still in the hospital when I was charged. I was 180 pounds when I got shot. I was under 125 pounds when I woke up.
How did you end up incarcerated? How did that even happen?
That's the system. You're not innocent. You're guilty until proven innocent. It doesn't matter who you are. You're dealing with you have to prove yourself that you were right. It doesn't matter if you were right. You're in that system. That's why you look at the media now and see all the corruption, how they cover up and hide the shootings that Chicago police and other shootings around the U.S. With officers killing kids with blank guns, with water pistols, with anything, killing kids just running away from them. They don't care.
Okay, and how long were you incarcerated?
The first time I was incarcerated for almost a year, and I was in the hospital, still in the hospital unit. The second time after the trials, after my wife and family and supporters bonded me out, they put a $2 million bond on me. And as you see, they put a $2 million bond on me, but the one that shot the boy 16 times in the back, there's no $2 million bond on him. So you could see the difference. They convicted me after they had their mock jury, and it was a wrongful conviction because the judge during the first trial called a mistrial against my lawyers and myself, and he said, "It is my court, I do what I want to do," because after we got the 3 acquittals, they knew they didn't have no case. So here we go with a mistrial when you know you don't have a case, and then you pick your own jury. On the second jury, you have a mock jury that comes in 99% white from suburbs that don't even deal with Chicago, and dismissed all of the blacks that we wanted to choose, which was only a few that they even gave you to choose from, because they listened to a black radio station that agrees with our side, and here's a black man that had a disorderly in 1964, and you're going to dismiss him, and he's a retired postal worker because you feel as though he couldn't represent justice after being a disorderly conduct in 1964. It's a corrupt system. And the people need to start fighting for the right to have the cameras. The federal government has already allowed the cameras to be in the Cook County system. You can go to Page, you can go all these outside counties outside of Chicago, and they have their camera systems put in. Here, they don't want to see justice because they don't represent justice. And I know it because of the 21 years that I've spent with them. They would call themselves a gang, the gang in blue. And if you didn't go along with what they wanted to be done on the street, then you were outcast. They would come after you, set you up. So it's just so much, and it's intense to even think about.
A resident case involving police shooting was heard on Tuesday in Chicago regarding the excessive use of force in Howard Morgan. Almost 10 years ago, he was pulled over by 4 police officers, forced from his car and shot 28 times, with most of the bullets entering his back. Officers claim Morgan pulled out his gun while an independent witness testified that he never fired a weapon. In 2012, Morgan was sentenced to 40 years in prison for attempted murder. We can now speak to his wife, Rosalind Morgan. Welcome to the program.
How are you today, Chandler Tucker?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful.
That's good. Thank you so much for being able to take your time out of your day. My first question that I would want to ask you is, how has this situation affected you?
It has affected me in an astronomical way because, first of all, I know that my husband is innocent, and the courts found him guilty after putting 8 counts attached to him, which were 4 counts of first-degree attempted murder, 3 counts of aggravated battery, and 1 count of discharge of his weapon. When they charged him of that in March of 2005, it was a horrendous time for myself, being his wife, and for our children, our family, and friends. It was devastating because I knew that this injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere at the same time because it's global. Why would he just go amok and pull his weapon out and shoot them? He pulled over to let them by, as we all do if there is an emergency and they activate their emergency signals. So if an individual is pulling over to let them by, that's customary. However, when that happened, that's when they drew their weapons, snatching him out of the car and shooting him 21 times in the back and 7 times in the front. When I heard about it over the news, I was almost devastated because I knew this could not be my husband. But through faith, as I'm getting dressed to get to the hospital, and when I saw him in the room with the police officers around him and finding bits and pieces of what had happened, because I know their story was very inconsistent, I had to take a breath and just relax and collect my thoughts, and I had to make sure that my children were safe. Because in a situation like that, you're not sure what is happening. That was an attempted assassination on Howard Morgan. Why is the question.
And it seems to me, just listening, it seems so hard to not be angry. How do you feel about the situation now? What's your emotional outlook on it?
Well, my emotional outlook now is totally different from the time that in February the 21st of 2005 and today. I've had a lot of feelings. Some were confusing to me and others were comfortable. When you're going through a situation of that nature, you have to really collect your thoughts and stay. You have to make sure that your tunnel vision is in a direction of positiveness. I didn't have the time to really become emotional about it because I was so numb that I could not believe that this actually took place, but yet it did. So you have to collect your thoughts, find out what's going on, collect as much valid information as you possibly can, and you have to forge ahead with the right connections.
And about today, how are you now? Do you think that you all are able to move on? And, you know, what's your status on your emotion, personally?
That's interesting. Personally, I have a job to complete because in the justice system, to me, they have the power to change dead ends into new beginnings. However, it is their option which way they're going to maneuver. But I know that God's past mercies have fortified me in this present distress, that victory awaits us at the end of the tunnel. When he was sentenced after the second trial, which it was a trial, they labeled it as a proceeding, but after the second trial, when they placed the guilty verdict on him, and they sentenced him to 40 years in prison. At that point, I knew I had to work faster to get things done, to prove his innocence, and we're still working on that to this day. When you go, let me back up a minute, when you go into the hospital setting and you see this injustice committed to one that you have been with for many, many years, and you see your husband shackled to the bed, he cannot move, and when you see this injustice, you formulate in your mind, what world are we living in today? Because it affects seniors, it affects the youth, it affects everyone.